What's going on, YouTube? It is the end of the year, which means it's time to reflect. It's time to reflect on all of the things that went right, and more importantly, it's time to reflect on all of the things that went wrong. I've taken the last couple of days to think on all of the different things that did not go according to plan inside of my business. And I've made an effort to distill the different lessons, insights that I got from these things, and that's what I want to share with you in this video. So let's get into it. Lesson number one. The difference between success and failure, the difference between making progress or looking back at the end of the year and realizing that you did not hit your goals, is simply growing up. Kids don't do what they're supposed to do. Adults do. And more often than not, the thing that holds us back is not a lack of information, is a lack of us doing the things that we know that we need to do. And I'm speaking from experience here. At 27 this year, I got to see a real clear reflection of all of the different ways in which I was still showing up like a kid, not doing the things that I needed to do or doing things that I shouldn't be doing, and the impact that that had on my business. And I share this with you vulnerably because I'm human, you're human, and there's a lot of people out here that are just kind of portraying this image of the perfect entrepreneur. And I'm kind of sick of that. And I think it's hard to communicate what's actually going to help someone without just opening up your heart. So that's lesson number one. You have a choice next year. And in a way, here I'm speaking to a deeper part of myself, which is to continue to show up like a kid in many regards when it comes to business and get kid results, or to grow up and start showing up like an adult and start getting adult results. Lesson number two, my content is not for me. It doesn't matter how I look. It doesn't matter how I sound. It doesn't matter that my background is pretty. What matters at the end of the day is that you find this content valuable. And no duh, right? But the deeper lesson that I think a lot of creators can learn from this is that so often we get lost in this. We get lost in the pretty camera and the fancy mic and the pretty setting, and we want the attention to be on us. And again, I'm speaking everything here from experience, but I know people out there can relate. And a huge lesson that I got this year is that all of that, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, what matters is that you, the person on the other side of the screen, when you're watching this video, that you get something valuable from it. What matters, it's not me, it's the content. Because my content, it's not about me. It's not for me. My content's for you. And this is something that if you struggle with putting yourself out there, if you struggle with perfectionism, you know, this is something that you can utilize to kind of cut through all the bullshit of wanting to look good, of wanting your content to be pretty, things that keep you from creating. Because again, what matters is that the person on the other side of the screen, in this case you, gets value out of the content that is being shared. Lesson number three, if it takes less than 3 minutes, do it now. Why do it now? Because if you don't do it now, you create an open loop of something that needs to get done in the future. It could be if somebody texts you, right? And you're not working, you see that text message. This is something that I always, all the time do. I would not respond to the text message now, and I'd just say I'll respond to it later. And now I have this open loop, which is kind of like an open tap in my brain that's consuming valuable processing power. I am now thinking that I have to get back to this person, so this is on my mind. And it's just this open loop that doesn't need to be there. And I generally believe the more open loops that you have, kind of like tabs in your browser, the slower your brain, your mind's going to work, and the more heavy you are going to personally feel, just because all of your processing power, all of your energy is consumed by these open loops. Furthermore, The more open loops that you have, the messier your life is. This could be something as simple as you come home from somewhere, you take off your shoes, and you don't put them where they belong. That is an open loop, because now you gotta close that loop later, and you gotta, maybe 2 hours later, you gotta pick up the shoes and put them where they go. So if it takes less than 3 minutes, just close the loop now. Lesson number 4, your calendar is a system. Before this year, I managed myself, my tasks, my projects with to-do lists. At the beginning of the week, I would plan whatever needed to get done that week, and I'd just go to town. One of the things that I implemented this year that has been a huge game changer in terms of productivity is utilizing my calendar and recurring events within my calendar as a system. So as a creator, entrepreneur, I need to be creating all the time. I need to be putting out content. So one of the systems that's in my calendar is my content system. In my calendar, I have a scheduled appointment to get inspired, to write, to edit, to post, and these are recurring events. So now I don't have to think about how am I going to create content this week. All I have to do is follow my calendar, because I've already done the thinking of what needs to get done for me to be able to create content consistently. I've put that into my calendar in the form of recurring events, and now I don't think about it. I just follow my calendar and I just make sure that I stick to that. And there are other systems within my calendar that are set up in the form of recurring events that have taken a lot of the mental processing of thinking of, okay, how am I going to do this week? Where am I going to fit it? No. What I did is I figured out what needs to happen, how much time it's going to take me. I've put that into my calendar in the form of recurring events. And again, now the to-do list is just for things that are not happening every week, things that I don't have to do on a recurring basis. So I would encourage you, if you're not utilizing your calendar as a system, figure out all of the things that need to get done every week. You can start with your content. So if you're a creator, entrepreneur, because it's something that needs to get done every single week, and just figure out what needs to happen for you to put out the amount of content that you want to put out on a weekly basis, and then schedule that into your calendar on a recurring basis. So it happens the same day, every single week at the same time. And then you can plan your life and the rest of your business around that. And for me, again, this has been a huge game changer. It's why I put it here as a lesson, because it was not something that I was doing before this year. And I've seen the power, and not just the power, but how it's impacted the consistency of my output just in terms of content. And I know it can do the same thing for you. Lesson number 5, only bet on things you can control. So this year, I lost a lot of money. Close to $40,000 between investing in this thing and that thing and letting this other person manage some of my capital. $40,000 went out the door. And the funny thing is that I could have probably taken those $40,000, put them into my business, and 3x that money. But I allowed other people, other opportunities, to convince me that I could have gotten a better return with them. Matter of fact, I didn't even think about that. If I just took that money and poured it into the business, if I bet on myself, that I could have done more with that money. I allowed other people to convince me otherwise. And that was a painful lesson, because I lost a lot of money. I think later in life, when you have a ton of capital to invest into different things, into projects where you have so much capital that you literally have to allocate it outside of your business, cool, go invest into other things. Go invest into crypto. Go invest in this company. Let that person manage a percentage of your money. But early on, when your company is not where it needs to be, why bet on anything outside of the thing that you have control over? It makes absolutely no sense. In retrospect, I have this insight, but I had to go through what I see now as a rite of passage to learn that I am a better manager of my money than other people are. I care more about my money than other people do. And to, in the future, not allow other people's opportunities, other people's certainty, to convince me to put my money where I have no control over it. Lesson number 6, when entering a business partnership, have a clear exit strategy. If you're not familiar with the idea of an exit strategy, it's simply an agreement in the form of a contract that gets made when a company gets founded by 2 or more partners. And that agreement, that contract states if one of the partners leaves, if the company gets terminated, how will things be distributed? Who gets what percentage? Is there going to be a buyout? And ideally, you want to do this at the beginning of a partnership. Now, I went to a business partnership at some point in 2021. That business partnership ended this year because there wasn't a clear exit strategy. There was a lot of anger and headaches that could have been easily avoided if at the beginning we got clear on what the exit strategy looked like. Lesson number 7, write to become an expert. I've never written as much as I wrote this year. I've written dozens of newsletters. I've written dozens of emails. I've written a ton of guides, all of which you can get on my website. I'll link to it down below. I highly recommend them. They're super actionable. But for me, I picked up writing as an exercise in thinking. And before I took writing as a part or as a discipline, I thought that I knew what I was talking about. After writing for a year about the thing that I do, I now know that I know what I'm talking about. And there's an interesting distinction there. But when you write, you're able to take all of the information that's in your head and you're able to organize it into shareable ideas, great for content, into frameworks that people can utilize. And something I've noticed through writing is that the quality of the information that I'm sharing is much higher quality. Matter of fact, one of the things that I've noticed is that most creators are sharing just fluff. There's not... I've expressed it in this way when I've talked about this idea. They're sharing candy, not vegetables or meat. There's like no real substance because they haven't taken the time to think about it, right? So they'll share, I don't know, I don't want to call anybody out in this video, but just stuff that's like super, super obvious, or it's like no doubt, or like, what are you saying, right? It's like, are you just saying whatever comes to mind? And people have appreciated that. And I've gotten a lot of business because people read what I write and then they realize that, okay, this is someone who knows what he's talking about because I've clearly demonstrated it through my writing. So if you want to become an expert, I highly encourage you to pick up writing as a discipline. Write about what you do every single day. I think Twitter is a great platform to start, but ideally, what I've really enjoyed is having one big piece of content that I write every week. That is my newsletter. Subscribe to it down below. And then taking that piece of content of like really good, high quality ideas and then creating micro pieces of content from that. And it becomes very easy to create when you already have an idea fleshed out. Lesson number 8, to stand out, you only have to stick out 1/8 of an inch. So this is one of my favorite stories that I heard this year. And it's this story by this guy called Errol Gerson. And when he graduated college, it was time to apply for a job. So he wrote up a resume, a cover letter, sent them out, sent out dozens of them, and weeks passed and no one responded. So he thought to himself, man, how can I get people to respond? And what came to mind was this idea of printing his resume and his cover letter in paper that was 1/8 of an inch larger than just regular letter size paper. And he printed it out in this odd paper and sent them out. And of course, when an employer got all the letters, all the cover letters, all the resumes, they would stack them up, and his would of course stick out 1/8 of an inch. And people would be curious, well, what is this? Within weeks, he started getting calls, and it wasn't long after until he got a job from this strategy. He only had to stick out 1/8 of an inch. And this is a beautiful story, that especially if you're a creator entrepreneur and you're looking to break through. I see too many Me Too's out there. All the content looks the same. And you really only have to find a way to stick out 1/8 of an inch to stand out. And this is a journey that I'm on. This is of finding what that 1/8 of an inch is for me. And this actually leads nicely into the next lesson. Lesson number 9. Niching down is well-intentioned bad advice. So one of the biggest things that I've changed my mind on is this idea of niching down, right? Niching down to tell you, okay, pick a niche down, right? So I'm a coach, and I'll pick the life coach niche, right? So the problem with this is that when you niche down, you automatically position yourself in a field full of competition. Like, think about it. How many life coaches, agency owners, audience growth specialists can you think about? Probably a ton, right? Because they all niche down. And the problem is that, again, you're niching down into what the guys that wrote this book called Blue Ocean Strategy call a red ocean, right? A red ocean, there's a lot of sharks in the water, and it's called red ocean because there's a lot of blood in the water from all the competition, right? Ideally, you want to find a blue ocean. So when it comes to niching down, you do want to niche down into a niche, but you don't want to take on their language, number one. Number two, you ideally want to create a sub niche within that niche. So early on, the way that I've personally done this and the way that I keep doing this is as I continue to find my place in the world, my place as an entrepreneur on the internet. First, I was an agency owner, then I transitioned to helping people with courses, then I transitioned to helping online entrepreneurs, then I transitioned to coach, business consultant, and I don't know many people that own the creator business niche, right? So I'm creating a sub niche, category of one, if you will, within this other niche. But if I hadn't done that, I'd be just another business coach. And how many of those do you know? Probably a ton, right? But how many of them do you know that specialize in helping creators build creator businesses? Maybe you can think of a couple, right? But not many. So if you're in the process of niching down, make sure that at least if you do niche down, that the languaging that you're using to describe yourself isn't the same as other people. Otherwise, people are going to be price shopping. They're going to be comparing you against other people, and you won't be able to charge high rates because at the end of the day, you're essentially a commodity, right? You're just like the guy down the street. So again, don't take on their language, and ideally create a sub niche within that niche. Lesson number 10, measure to manage. There's this saying that what doesn't get measured doesn't get managed, right? And that what you focus on grows. This is a habit that I took on this year that I wasn't really doing before, which is to measure all kinds of metrics, from the amount of posts that I put out on a weekly basis, to the amount of call to actions that I make, to the amount of impressions that my website gets, to the amount of deep work hours that I do every single day, to how many people subscribe to my email list, to how many sales, like literally tracking all of these very important numbers in my business. And doing this has given me a ton of clarity on the things that actually drive results within my business, number one. Number two, it's given me clarity in the things that are not driving results, the things that are a waste of time or a waste of money, number two. And number three, it's allowed me to see where I am personally not showing up how I think or how I'm aiming to show up, because I have numbers to back it up. It's like, hey, you said you were gonna post 6 times this week and you only posted 3, and I have data. What happened? And then you can start optimizing based off of that. You can start making data-driven decisions, which are smart decisions. A lot of times the way that we make decisions in our business are emotional, right? I know this was a bit of a longer video, but I felt that the video deserved the time. Let me know what your favorite lesson was down below in the comments, and that is it for this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.